Cassidy. I'm an information addict, and this is my podcast where I explore information, ideas, and beliefs, and try to do those things more responsibly. It has been quite a while since I've done a monologue video for you. The last couple weeks have been mostly conversations, then before that, a long break. And I figured now is probably the time to kind of jump into that, although I feel like I haven't had a lot of time to kind of plan and practice. As I have said, I'm kind of moving into a new season of life. But my friend Sam said something the other day in a conversation that in this little corner of the internet, we should do more talking and less planning. And I don't know how I actually feel about that sentiment, but I think it's an interesting enough point to give it a shot. So I figured I'd try here and give you a little update about my life and what I've been thinking about this project and kind of where I see it going and what I hope to continue doing with it. Outside of just wanting to refocus and redirect and refresh the vision of this project, I have gotten a recent bump of subscribers that I think has come a lot from Pine Creek's channel. So hello to all of my newly minted viewers. Thank you for following me and being interested in hearing my perspective and my conversations. And I want to make this a little bit more of an introduction and a refresher for who I am and kind of introduce myself in this project. So for those of you who have been following me, you know that I recently relocated to the Netherlands. I'm originally from Arizona and lived there a long time. I love Arizona. It's my home, and the last couple of years living there has been amazing, but I have been itching to try and go somewhere else and try to live in a different place. So being here in the Netherlands feels like a great next step, and the thing that I have been waiting for as I waited out COVID. Being able to come and live in the Netherlands and experience what it's like has been an amazing thing, but it definitely comes with its challenges, and there's a lot I am getting used to as I prepare and get into patterns of living in a new world and connecting in a new community and learning a new language. And there's just so much, there's so much new and exciting things to look forward to. But yeah, there's a lot of challenges and uncertainties, and I'm riding the ups and downs of that. Mostly ups, but there's definitely downs, and there's definitely some uncertainty as I try to figure out what that means for the long term and visas and what have you. And finding a more solid place to live and record and do these things. So it's been a little, I wanted to be more prepared starting again than I was, but that's okay. It gave me some time to rest and think and process a lot of different things. And the end of last year was a lot more chaotic and stressful than I imagined it would be. It was a lot more draining. And so coming here and restarting has been a bit of a whirlwind of trying to get my mind around and taking slow, intentional steps to ground myself and really connect with community. It's been a little hard connecting in-person community at the moment because it was 2 weeks of quarantine and then been here about 2 months. And for half of it, I've been sick and bedbound. So it's been a little difficult kind of getting grounded and more connected where I'm at in real life. But luckily I do have some connections here that have been helpful in giving me a piece of that. And I am looking forward to continue gaining that as I move forward. But as I've wanted to make in-person connections more of a priority, especially since I'm in a new place and starting a new adventure, there has been this struggle in my mind of how do I integrate this thing that I do on the internet, the ways that I operate and connect on online worlds with the life that I'm living now, and how do I stop it from sort of engulfing or what's the word? Sort of stopping me from walking down the path of making those intentional moves to root myself in the real world. And it's been a lot of thoughts of kind of what is this thing that I'm doing. I originally started this project as a way to help me start processing the things that were in my head and be more intentional about the ways that I was consuming. I have had real issues with consumption cycles of consuming and participating in information and media consumption in a way that has been not healthy. And not even that the intent of it wasn't healthy. It definitely was aimed towards trying to figure out big questions and work together with people to find answers. But I kind of bought into this lie that I think most of us do in this modern frame, that the answer to our questions is just more information. And I think for me, it was sort of this recognition of it's not more information, it's better information consumption. And so this kind of came out of that as a way to kind of help me moderate what I was processing and take these thoughts that had been bubbling in my head from all of this buildup and find ways to put them out and organize them. And my goal for the last year was just to be consistent with it, because I didn't know whether I was going to like doing it or if it was actually going to be healthy. It was just sort of a trial run to see, hey, maybe this is a good way to start processing a lot of these things and work with others to process more helpfully. And it has been a really beneficial thing. And it's been this immense blessing in my life of getting me connected with interesting people and talking about interesting ideas and opening the door to a new path of big question conversation that I didn't quite see when I was looking for it, especially when I started the journey of trying to understand big questions in an earnest, honest way. So, yeah, it's been a lot of refocusing and thinking, what is the point of this? And is it lining up with the thing that I wanted it to be? And overall, it has been very much aligned with my intentions to start. But I fear that it could easily open the door to being corrupted into something I don't want it to be, especially as I get more people engaging and more people discussing with me and sending me articles and sending me links. I'm realizing, ooh, I'm slipping into old patterns of consumption, some good, well, maybe not good, but some more helpful than others. And it kind of makes me stop and figure out what's the point of having these conversations. Because for me, the online platform of big conversation development and engagement came far later in the timeline than when I did it in person. So when I started, I was connecting with all the people around me, disconnected to a lot of these conversations on the internet. I was consuming a lot of information, and I was searching the internet for answers and people who might be able to solve, but I wasn't engaging with them. The engagement came from the people actually in my community, the back and forths from friends, coworkers, members of my church, what have you. And I found this path into online live participation with people online who are interested in the same conversations immensely helpful and beautiful, but also very limited in the full experience of what it is to search these questions and give support to people in this place where they're starting to have questions about how the world is and challenging their assumptions of what they believe the world to be. For a lot of you who follow me, you know I'm really big into deconstruction and reconstruction because I deconstructed myself. And for me, that deconstruction did not end in a loss of faith. It ended in a fuller, deeper view of faith and a participation in a new denomination of that same faith that felt fuller and more beautiful than anything else I'd ever seen. And I always had a goal of trying to be a support to people who are in that space that I was 5 years ago, trying to answer questions, not knowing where or if they were ever going to land anywhere. Because it's a really lonely, terrifying journey, especially if you do believe that there is a potential for consequences to the beliefs that you hold. Those aren't questions that I think should be taken flippantly. I think they're serious, and there's a lot to be had exploring those questions and wrestling with them in an earnest, honest way. The problem I had found is that there was a lot of that engagement that wasn't really about earnest, honest question seeking, that was aimed at helping and supporting. It was mostly aimed at helping and supporting others be a part of the own ideology that person was sort of spewing. And if not that, it was more of a degradation of questioning and tearing away beliefs instead of understanding what should we stand on, what should we be building towards, and how do we build better. And for me, this project is aimed at that thing of how do we build better, because we all have to build something to live. We all have to hold certain beliefs. We all have to have certain confidences to get out the door every day and put some skin in the game and act and live. Whether we have a conscious idea of those confidences or not, or a full detailed understanding of the reasons behind those confidences or not. And that's been, man, a real passion for me. It's to kind of be in that conversation in a way that's not belittling or minimizing people for different beliefs, but really moving towards something that can help us pursue goodness, truth, and beauty. Because at the end of the day, we all are experiencing this world. We're all in a journey to try to understand those things and try to embody those things the best way we can. And it doesn't help to treat each other as enemies in that journey. The other thing I am sort of cautious of as I continue this project and trying to make sure I avoid is making this into some sort of apologetics framework or some sort of video that is aimed at being an authority in big question answers. Most people in this space, you know, who are having these kind of conversations see themselves as an intellectual. I don't. I'm a filmmaker who has a real interest in comparative religion, philosophy, and big questions, and seeing how those things can affect the way we live, affect the way we create, and sort of create a better world for ourselves and the people around us. And I don't want to come off and pretend or even want the responsibility of giving for sure answers to these big questions. All I can do is give people space to share their opinions and do my best to be the authority on how I think and give you a view of the way that I look into the world and how my brain works and how I came to these answers, because it might help you, or give advice of how I dealt with the pattern of deconstruction and reconstruction, and see how it might be helpful to you and what I've learned from the people who I've talked to who've gone through the same things. And it's so easy to become, or even just be seen as a person trying to convince or convert. And as much as I think any type of participation in the world that leads to Jesus is great, and you know, if someone is interested in orthodoxy or Christianity, or even just the participation and idea of God by listening to what I put out, I actually think that's great, because I think it's a far better and healthier path than others. But it's not my ultimate goal. I think that there is a value in listening and understanding people who don't fall into that place, and understanding there is something to learn from a person who doesn't necessarily by the idea of God or that participation being good, even if we have different views. All that said, and it might be all rambling, I think my ultimate goal is to be a place of exploration, of idea formation and exploration in an honest way that isn't so built on having everything right the first time we speak. It's about putting skin in the game and giving support to people to explore ideas. And something I really want to avoid is this defamation of ideas and people in a way that stops people from thinking helpfully. To make ideas seem stupid or moronic and speaking in a way that's demeaning, I think does a disservice to the conversation and the people who hold those beliefs, because no one thinks well when they feel stupid. No one participates well when they feel they're on guard or attacked. And it's finding a way to understand the individual and the ideas that we all hold have a place to be discussed. And I certainly believe there's room to challenge and find truth and beauty and goodness as well in all of these ideas. And there's a huge value in making that really any of those three is a priority. But we ultimately have to see each other as humans and what's a good participation in that first before we can ever come to good answers about those questions. So what should we expect going forward then, if that's sort of where I want to go and what I want to aim to? Well, there's certainly lots more conversations coming out. I have a whole catalog of conversations that I need to come out and a whole list of potential conversation partners and scheduled conversation partners to release. There's going to be more monologues. What form they're going to be in, I'm not sure. I'm still playing with that, especially since I'm not fully settled in the place that I'm at and kind of have a full understanding of what the next few months or year really holds for me. So I'm trying to find a way to make them enjoyable and fun, because honestly, I'd much rather have the conversations. They're just, it's just easier for me to record. It's easier for me to engage. I don't really like being on camera. I've gotten used to it due to what I do and having to be in front of the camera sometimes, but it's not my favorite, especially on my own. But yeah, there's a place for these monologue videos because I think it helps me process and think more clearly about some of the conversations I have and dig deeper on some of the ideas that my guests express, that I express. And when you're doing things live and you're aimed at exploration, you often say things not quite right, or you want to rephrase something or correct something. And there are times you say the wrong thing. And it's easy to have a fear of always saying the wrong thing. And I definitely do, especially when I'm recording, because I'm very afraid my words will be taken out of context or taken in the wrong meaning. And that's absolutely going to happen. But I think instead of just always holding myself back because I'm afraid of being misunderstood, I have to find that balance and be a little more open to make a mistake. Because if I'm not willing to do that myself, it does a disservice to the people who I have on to have conversations. It does a disservice to the whole experiment that I have of exploration versus argumentation. Outside of those things, I am going to try a couple different things with this channel, some experimentation. I'm trying to find a way to make art more of a highlight in what I do here, because it's the thing I love most, more than big idea exploration, truly, because I think when big idea exploration is done well, it informs art in a way that that you wouldn't be able to see if you hadn't participated in that, and you wouldn't be able to create if you hadn't participated in that. So I want to find a way to embrace that and explore this expression of art, and the relationship between big question thinking. And I think the last thing I kind of want to focus on is finding ways to make this more about grounding and participating in the real world and escaping from the consumption cycles of online participation, whether it's simply consuming information or engaging with others with information online and through virtual means. And I by no means advocating that all online participation is bad. I actually think there's a lot of good that comes from it. But I think there is something I've learned in the last several years, especially in the last year, and it's becoming more salient to me every day. There is an importance to community in your real world and not letting the virtual world become something crippling and something it's not meant to be. And it can be harder to participate in this type of communication and this type of mode in person. But I think there's huge value in sort of taking these things you've learned online and the ways that we've learned to participate online and taking that participation out into the real world. And it helps you to test your assumptions better. And it helps you to understand how valid your worldview is. And it helps you, if done right, connect better with your community, connect better with your neighbors and your friends, and dive deeper. And I think that's probably more needed than ever. Outside of that, there are a couple other ideas I am playing with on ways to make this project and my participation more sustainable, and ways I can give back to the people who watch and listen, who engage so respectfully, which is amazing. I'm very in awe of how respectful my comment section is. It's not always that civil on the internet. So I'm very grateful for all of you who add to the conversation, and you give me a lot to think about. And so I want to find ways to continue giving back to you the way that you have helped me in this process. But I'm not quite sure exactly how I want to do that yet. So that will probably be a discussion for another time. But for now, I guess I will leave it at that. So, like always, I will close with the Serenity Prayer. God, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference.